I left my wife because she couldn't get over her parents' death, and I don't feel guilty about it. My wife was always very close with her parents, and when they passed away in a car crash 5 years ago, she went into a deep slump. She wouldn't leave her bed, and I took on every chore and cared for our newborn by myself. The problem is, it's been like this for 5 years. For 5 years, she hasn't left her bed, and I mean that literally. She expected me to cook her meals, and when I was at work, she ordered takeout. We hadn't had intimacy in 5 years. I didn't remember the last time she kissed me. She barely speaks to our 6-year-old daughter. I did every household chore myself. I worked 60-hour weeks. I finally worked up the courage and decided to put my foot down about everything for the sake of our kids, for me, and especially for her. I sat next to her on the bed, took her hand gently in mine, and spoke softly. I know it's hard. It's been really hard for both of us, but we can't keep going on like this, stuck in this endless sadness. Our kid misses you. I miss you too. I miss hearing your laugh and seeing your smile. Please, for all of us, can you try to take even a small step forward with me? I asked her. She looked back at me, and I saw a singular tear fall down her cheek. She squeezed my hand weakly and said, I don't know if I can. I was beginning to lose my patience. I told her she had to get up. She had to. I didn't care how sad she felt. She had to get up. She went silent. The air felt heavy, and then I said that I couldn't keep doing this alone. I was tired. She told me that I had no idea how it felt to lose my parents and refused to speak to me after that. I yelled, You're seriously telling me I don't understand what it's like to lose someone? You were getting your master's degree. You were studying to be something while you were in school. I supported you through everything. I paid for your tuition. I paid for the house that we're living in. I worked almost 70 hours a week to put food on the table for us while trying to be there for our kids. You remember during that time Andrew died, my own brother, and I couldn't even attend his funeral because I had to work to put food on our table. When Drew died, I didn't have time to mope around and stay in bed every day. I had to get up and work even harder for you, for us. I was still here for you when you decided to leave school in the middle of the semester. I still paid for the full class. When you needed therapy, I paid for it. Whenever you needed a shoulder to cry on or someone to be strong for you, I did it. I was there. I was depressed. I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. I didn't want to be the only one taking care of Connor, taking him to school every day before I worked a 10-hour shift and not being able to greet him as he got off the bus. I'm not trying to invalidate your feelings, but after 5 years of grieving, I am tired. Kay didn't say anything. She just looked at me. I asked her if she had anything to say, and she stayed silent. This infuriated me because it felt like I was talking to a brick wall. I woke Connor up and left the house for the night and got a hotel. I needed some space away. On the drive there, Connor asked me why Mom wasn't coming with us, and I told him that she would rather stay in bed because she needed some rest. After we left, she kept calling me and texting me. I texted her back that I would see her in the morning, and she sent a text to come back home that instant. But I needed some space from her. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb, put Connor to bed, and got his clothes ready for school the next morning. While he was asleep, I started writing a letter to give to Kay the next morning. I woke up Connor and drove him to school. Since our home was in between his school and my job, I stopped by the house and dropped off the letter. In it, I told Kay how much I loved her and wanted the best for her. I told her again everything that I said the night before, how I was tired and couldn't keep working 50-60-hour weeks to support our family while I was the only one taking care of Connor. I was also the only one keeping up with the house, and it was starting to get worse. Clothes and dishes would often pile up in the sink and would still be there when I got home. The rooms were messy if I didn't straighten them up, and you can forget about dusting. After 5 years of keeping this up, I was getting burned out. At the end of the letter, I told her that if she couldn't help me with anything or get out of bed for herself, then I would have to get a divorce. I left the letter on the kitchen counter. Before work, I would normally buy her breakfast or cook her breakfast, but I didn't have the time that morning, so I knew she would come downstairs and see it around 11 o'clock. While I was at work, Kay called me and was yelling on the phone. She asked me how I could treat her like that after she lost both of her parents. She said now I was making her lose her family. I said that it wasn't the best time to talk about this and that we could talk when I got home. When I got home that night, I was greeted at the door by Kay. This was the first time I saw her out of bed after I got off work in years, but it wasn't a pleasant surprise. She started talking about the letter I dropped off and how I was selfish and a lowlife for wanting to break up our family. She was screaming and throwing things in the living room. She said that I was a failure at being a husband and a dad and that I would never be half the man her therapist was. She said he would let her express herself and didn't judge her like I did. I let her get all of her emotions and words out before I got up, wiped the tears from my face, and without a word, I left the house. I drove around, but not to the hotel this time. I drove around the town and tried to clear my head of all the hurtful things she said to me, but under the city lights, all that played through my mind was the last 5 years and the arguments we'd had. I couldn't imagine spending my life without Kay, and I thought about how this could affect Connor. I thought about Connor's therapy, but between the house and the kids and only one income, I knew we wouldn't be able to afford both of our therapists. I then began to think long-term, could I be able to sustain this if she never decides to work again? I decided to drive back home and try to get some rest. I stayed in the guest room that night and don't think Kay heard me come in. I looked over at the clock on the nightstand, and it read 3:24 on my side and went to sleep. The next day, it was time to wake up to get Connor ready for school. I had only gotten 3 hours of sleep, and my body felt beyond heavy. I dragged myself to Connor's room to get him ready, then took him to school like I normally do. On that drive, I decided to call my boss to let him know I couldn't make it in today. I was too tired and felt drained from yesterday. When I returned home, Kay was out of bed again. She was in the kitchen making breakfast. She jumped when she saw me and asked what I was doing at home. I told her I called out because I needed some rest and that I'd be going upstairs to go back to sleep. She had a weird look on her face and said that we needed the money and we couldn't afford to miss a day of work. But my body ached and my head was pounding from lack of sleep. I told her I needed rest, and she slammed the pan on the stove and said, "Well, go take care of something else around the house." She said we needed toilet paper and other groceries. She gave me a huge list to go grocery shopping and said to go get the stuff we needed. I said that I'd take care of it sometime that weekend and headed upstairs. I guess there was some light to the situation. She was making food, something she hadn't done in so long, but I was just too tired to pay much mind to it. I went to the guest bedroom again, and once my head hit the pillow, I was out like a light. I woke up just in time to pick up Connor from school. I didn't realize how sleep-deprived I was, but I felt way better physically. I picked up Connor from school and asked him how he was doing. He told me he was good and asked to get ice cream. I couldn't resist his little puppy eyes, and so we went to his favorite ice cream parlor. I got strawberry ice cream, and he got vanilla. I looked out the window of the parlor and saw a couple with their baby walking down the strip. The woman was laughing at something the husband said. Then the husband started playing peekaboo with the baby, and she giggled. I couldn't help but wish that our family could have been like that. That moment made me feel that the years were flying by, and we were wasting them being sad and overworked. We finished our ice cream and headed home. Connor excitedly ran to our bedroom to greet Kay. "Hey mommy, are you feeling better?" he asked her. "I'm okay," she said. He hugged her and hoped she felt better soon. As he was walking out, she said, "Make sure you close the door behind you." I stood in the doorway looking at her until Connor walked past me and shut the door. The next day was a Saturday, and I didn't have to wake up as early to take Connor to school. Instead, I brought him to my mom's house because I had to go to my weekend job. It was at a fancy restaurant, and the tips were nice at times. When I got there, Connor greeted his grandma, and I hugged and kissed them both before I left. I headed to work, and after the first few tables, my manager walked up to me and told me that I could go home for the day. I asked him why, and he said that there wasn't enough traffic coming through, and he had too many servers on the floor eating up his profits. We were paid $2.13 an hour, but I didn't complain. I cleaned the rest of my tables and headed home. As I was pulling into the driveway, I noticed a car there that I hadn't seen before. I wondered if it was my mom driving one of her friend's cars and visiting with Connor, or maybe an Uber Eats driver. Kay would always have food delivered to her. I didn't expect any company, but I walked into the house. I heard someone laughing and screaming upstairs. It was Kay. I dropped everything at the door. I hoped everything was okay. Adrenaline rushed through my veins as I ran up the stairs. I yelled her name to ask her if she was okay. I got no reply. I rushed into the bedroom where she usually was. I saw that she was okay, more than okay. She was getting intimate with her therapist, Tad. Tad was the only person she would talk to about how she felt. She didn't even talk to me beyond the fact that she was depressed. He was the one she confided in for the past 5 years, and I was paying to have my wife cheat on me. I asked her how she could do this after supporting her for the last 5 years. I asked her if she even thought about how this would affect Connor and if I was not good enough for her. She stood there like a deer in headlights, and Tad scrambled to put his clothes on. I told him to stay right there because I needed answers, and I needed them that instant. She tried to defend herself, saying he was the one that was there for her while I was working all the time. I felt isolated and lonely, and he was there for me, she said. I asked her if she remembered why I had to work those long hours. She again said that when I got off work, I was too tired to get intimate with her or have a conversation. The only conversations we had were to blame her for how hard I had to work and press her to do things around the house or tell her how bad of a mother she was. I said that we had that conversation one time after 5 years of her grieving. I said I was getting burned out and trying my best to keep our family together, and this was how I was repaid. I felt betrayed. I was more disappointed than mad. I left the house to be with my mom for a bit. The next few weeks, I prepared the divorce papers. I didn't know how I would go about divorcing her or how we would split everything, but I knew it was time to get out of there. After finding out that Kay was cheating on me with her therapist, I felt betrayed and hurt initially, but over time, I started to feel a sense of relief since I didn't have to worry about working so hard to provide for an entire family. I often daydreamed about taking care of Connor on my own, downsizing the house, working only 40-hour weeks, and living comfortably, and now that was within reach. Me and Connor lived with my mom as I started preparing evidence for my lawyer. It was difficult explaining to Connor that Mommy and Daddy weren't going to be together anymore. He cried for days and begged us to stay together, and I knew this was the only time I had to resist those puppy dog eyes.